Hi there, a warm welcome to the Racing Post Weekend Football Postcast. It's Bruce Millington, Mark Langdon, Dan Childs and Paddy Powers, Jonathan Smith. We've got a packed show this week. We've got the game of the season so far to look forward to as Liverpool and Man City do battle. Loads of other great TV action, plus some fiendishly tricky 3 p.m. Saturday Premier League games to solve. We'll have all the best bets in Europe and lower down the divisions. Of course, we've got the naps as well. First of all, though, it is Responsible Gambling Week, and in the Racing Post, we've got a number of activities and content going on. It's in the newspaper and on all our social media channels. So if you want to check that out, please do. And don't forget, if you're having a bet, please bet responsibly. Okay, before we look at the weekend action, we'll have a quick look at the Champions League, because I'm a mad, fascinating, crazy match week. What was it, 4, Mark, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It really was fascinating. I absolutely loved it. We had Kyle Walker becoming, I think, the 3rd most expensive goalkeeper in the history of football. We had an incredible game at Chelsea with thousands of fans leaving at 4-1 down, flooding back into the bridge. I watched one of the most pathetic Barcelona performances I've ever seen. I mean, if Lionel Messi hadn't been playing, I think they would have got beat 4-0. What does it all mean for the betting, Jonathan? Give us Paddy Power's latest on the Champions League.
So Champions League outright winners, we've got Man City 11-4, Liverpool 11-2, Barcelona 13-2, PSG 13-2, Bayern Munich 15-2, Juve 10s, Real Madrid 16s, Atletico Madrid 20s, and then we've got Chelsea, Dortmund, Ajax, Spurs, all at 33s.
Mark, it's hard to know where to start, but we will start with Barca, because, I mean, that was absolutely awful. I thought Slavia Prague were terrific, but if Messi, I mean, people call Zaha, Palace a one-man team with Zaha. I mean, if it hadn't been for Messi, they would have got filled in there. It was incredible. They're 3rd favourites.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be winning it. The Spanish form's not looking good at all this year. I think Real Madrid absolutely thrashed Galatasaray, but generally speaking, they've been nowhere near the level. If you have a look at La Liga, the table's really congested, which either means there's about 10 good teams on it, or no good teams. And I think it's far more likely that it's none. It's going to take a record low in sort of recent times for the points tally in La Liga. So I don't fancy any of them. I think the coaching at Barcelona is way off. Valverde, he's basically morphed Barcelona into Argentina, where they've got this team that can't play unless Messi has the ball. They lack rhythm in midfield. They're really vulnerable defensively, beaten 3-1 at the weekend. They don't like it when teams sort of are aggressive against them. I don't mean dirty aggressive, just actually playing their faces a little bit and pressurise them in midfield. I think for them to go forward now, they probably need to have a coal of probably Busquets, because Busquets and De Jong in central midfield, I mean, they want to do the same job. I mean, you've got 2 of them in there doing one man's work, and sometimes when you're at home at Barcelona, you don't even need one of them, never mind 2 of them. So Griezmann hasn't settled into the team at all, really. No, I don't really rate the Spanish teams. Atletico and not very good, and Real Madrid have had a lot of problems as well.
So if you're having a fresh bet now on the Champions League, who might you be interested in?
Well, I think I mentioned PSG at the start. I mean, they're still going along really nicely in this competition, but you do have to. There is the question mark about how they do it. Once we get to the knockout stage, I think the English teams are just much better than everybody else. So, I mean, if you back an English winner or Man City and Liverpool combined, I don't think you're going to be going far wrong. I suppose the only danger, is if they end up in this sort of titanic title race and it becomes everything. But they were in it last year, and one of them won the competition, and the other one was beaten really unluckily in the quarter-final. So I just think that they are the 2 best teams. If you wanted a flyer, Borussia Dortmund, they've outplayed Inter at home and they've outplayed Barcelona at home. Worry about them away from home, but at home, nobody's going to enjoy that trip to Dortmund.
Dan, what games did you watch?
I watched the Spurs, obviously, on the Wednesday. Watched the Chelsea, the crazy Chelsea Ajax game. Saw a bit of the Bayern Munich game because it was on earlier as well. I thought Bayern Munich, I know it was only against Olympiacos. I still think, obviously, sacked their manager after the 5-1 defeat at Frankfurt. You could see they're a little bit uneasy as well in the first half. had a lot of territory, but weren't really looking as incisive as they normally do. I mean, we're talking about big teams that we're not sure about, the Spanish teams, but I look at Bayern at the moment and I don't have a great deal of confidence in them. I think that 7-2 win at Spurs was a little bit of an outlier in the way they've been performing. And Juventus, they've had to work really hard to beat Lokomotiv Moscow in both times, home and away. I'd start to get a bit concerned about their challenge. I totally agree with Mark. I think the Manchester City and Liverpool got big chances. I don't think you should look too far back with teams that looking at past years with PSG. I think they've had some tough draws. A few things have gone against them. That Man United tie last season, they really should have won it comfortably. And I look at how they've been playing, and they've had Mbappe's been out earlier in the season, Neymar's been out. You've still got Cavani there, Icardi. They've got so much firepower. I just think they're going to have a big chance of going a long way.
Excellent. And Johnny, if you were having a bet now on the Champions League, where would your money be going?
Last time I was on the pod, I did say PSG, so I'm going to stick with that. I think they look very good going forward. And I think they're as solid a bet as any, really. Taking Man City and Liverpool out of the equation, I think, they look really, really good. So,
jolly good. Thank you very much indeed, chaps. Now then, before we start our weekend preview, we are on a bit of a roll with the naps. We've had 2 trebles on the trot, so let's hope the boys have got some naps. They will come at the end of our preview. We will start, though, with a Friday night fixture at Carrow Road, Norwich versus Watford. A very early 6-pointer, because both these teams are struggling like mad. That's the main headline about this game. The other thing about this game, of course, Watford are the only team who can legitimately wear their away kit at Norwich this season. Anyway, it kicks off at 8 o'clock. It's on Sky Sports, and Paddy Powell bet as follows.
Norwich 13-8, 5-2 the draw, 6-4 the away.
Cool, we've got some tough games this week. Mark, you can lead on with this one.
I think I'd rather be on Watford. They've had a sort of tough run, I suppose, of fixtures recently. The Chelsea and Tottenham. They are winless, but I don't think they're hopeless. And I looked at Norwich, no shots on target at Brighton last time out. Really isn't great. 1 point from 18 since beating Manchester City. That might just be one of them games that you sort of look back on in sort of 12 months' time when they're back in the Championship and go, when they're mid-table in the Championship, I remember when they beat Man City. They look, I think, if I was sort of looking at which one's going to finish sort of lower in the Premier League, I know Watford are currently rock bottom, but I still think there is a bit of quality in there. We haven't always seen it, obviously, but I think that their problems at the back against somebody like Chelsea, there's nobody in that Norwich team that can pick a pass out like Jorginho did. So I thought Watford did okay at Tottenham a couple of weeks ago. If they play like that, I think they'll beat Norwich.
You've seen plenty of Watford down this season, obviously. Can you put your finger on why they have made such a poor start?
Yes, I think earlier in the season, maybe they were a little bit too gung-ho, but Deeney's loss. Deeney went into the season with a knee injury. He's a massive player for Watford. Wasn't quite right first couple of games. He was pulled out of the side. Lost a lot of tight games. Would have won actually at Newcastle if the VAR rule had been applied properly with a handball. So there's a little bit of luck go against you. And I think the managerial change, I'm not sure they've done it right. I think Grazia was a bit unlucky to go. He built up a lot of credit in the bank that earned him a bit more of a longer term shot at it. And they've actually gone very cautious and negative under Flores. Everybody's talking about they're keeping a few clean sheets. That's good. But if you look at the expected goals and shot stats now, they're losing on those stats. Earlier on in the season, they were winning on them and they were losing tight games. Now, quite frankly, they don't look a very good side. And I think over the course of the season, because of the squad they got, they will finish above Norwich. I think for this individual game, the way the teams are, I would actually favour Norwich. I think with the injury situation Norwich have had, they've had a few of them just come back recently. They've had a Hernandez first start of the season in the loss at Brighton, Onel Hernandez. Tom Tribal, first start since August. Stiepermann, first start in 4 weeks. That's 3 big players that made starts there, should be better for it. Watford have got 3 players back in training this week. Key players, Etienne Capoue, Troy Deeney, Ismail Assar should be a key player, the money they've paid, but they're not match fit yet. Probably none of them are going to be ready to start. So I just think Norwich, with their injury situation, are further along in sorting it out, and I think that could be key here, Norwich to win a tight game.
Mark likes Watford, Dan likes Norwich, so presumably you're going to go for the draw, Jonathan.
I sure am, yeah. You guessed that one correctly. There we go. I think both teams are just struggling for goals up front. I can see it really being a 0-0, 1-1 type of game. I think lacking creativity, both teams here. And I just think, obviously, Norwich haven't won since Man City. They've missed Pukki, hasn't scored since then. So they really are lacking goals, both teams, and they've failed to register a shot on target, as been previously mentioned. So, yeah, I think the draw here will be my bet for this one.
Okay, next up, it's the Saturday lunchtime fixture, Chelsea v Palace. It's the they played for both clubs game as well. We'll do that in just a mo.
I'm Jose Mourinho. I know a thing or two about being special. English Manager of the Year 3 times, special. Winning the daily jackpot on Paddy Power games, not special.
Understood, Jose. Yes, someone wins an average £40,000 jackpot every single day. So if you win, don't think you're special. Daily Jackpots by Paddy Power Games. Jackpots must be awarded by 11 p.m. and vary from day to day. Jackpot is shared with other operators. Available on selected games. T's and C's at paddypower.com. 18 plus BeGambleAware.org.
Welcome back. Let's get stuck into Saturday's Premier League game, starting with the 12:30 BT Sport game at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea versus Palace. They played for both clubs. What have we got, lads?
Loftus-Cheek,
Cahill,
Ashley Cole.
Good. Johnny?
Oh, I'm struggling.
Ray Wilkins.
Oh, they butch, yeah.
Where else we got? Going way back, Steve Kember and Gary Locke. Who else have we got? Let's have a think. Batshuayi, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of loan action, isn't there? Yeah, well, if you hear any more, blurt them out. But in the meantime, Dan, who wins this?
I fancy Chelsea. I'll just try and juice up the price a little bit. I'll go Chelsea and both teams to score at 17-10. I think you look at games this season, the defensive record isn't that great. Vulnerable to counter-attacks, as we saw against Ajax. I know Crystal Palace aren't Ajax, but they are a counter-attacking side.
They're not far short.
Yeah.
They play similar sort of football.
They play similar sort of football. You've got that. Zaha's looking better than he was earlier in the season. He's obviously their main counter-attacking threat.
He might be one that...
Well, yeah, they will play football.
Yeah. So, no, I still don't think they're going to contain Chelsea enough. A lot of goals in this Chelsea team. Mason Mount could be out. That'd be a bit of a blow to him. He's been impressive this season. But no, Chelsea's winning both teams to score for me.
Okay, Johnny, who do you like?
I'm going to go home win and both teams to score. I agree. There's a bit of value in that, I think, at 17-10. I think Chelsea was superb against Watford last week. It could have been a cricket score. I think Abraham, Mount, Willian and Pulisic will cause Palace defence some issues. They've looked good this season at Palace, admittedly, I think. They played well against Leicester the other week, but Leicester had quite a bit of power going forward with Vardy. And I think the transfer ban for Chelsea, I think, probably has been a blessing in disguise. They've been able to bleed these young players into the team. And I think Lampard's got them on a roll. So I do think they are liable to ship a goal. Certainly Zuma in defence, a little bit of a worry. And that's my concern, really, with Chelsea. But I think a home win here and both teams to score, I think, so 17-10, I won't put us off back in that one.
Victor Moses.
Very good. What you got, Mark?
I'm going to go for...
go on, Johnny.
Like Remy.
Like Remy. Oh, very good indeed.
Just about played for yeah.
I think Neil Sullivan's another one off the top of my head.
What, the keeper?
Yeah, I think he did.
I don't remember him playing for either club. Did Mickey Droy play for it? Mickey Droy is another one. Anyway.
I'm going to go for draw half-time, Chelsea full-time. If you have a look at Chelsea, last couple of home games against sort of similar ranked opponents, they were 0-0 with both Newcastle and Brighton. I think Palace, probably a similar game to play out to what happened at Leicester, where they held them at bay for
Steve
45
Wicks.
minutes.
Sorry.
Oh, I don't know him. Okay. No. So they held them at bay for 45 minutes, but they were unable to. There was just a quality difference, and I think eventually Chelsea will find a way through. But I do agree. I think Mason Mount could be a bit of a loss for them. They haven't quite got another player like that in the team. But Kovacic and Jorginho playing really well together in centre mid to just about Chelsea win.
Okay, chaps, let's whiz through the 3 p.m. games. There's 4 of them, and they're all, well, 3 of them are certainly tough. One of them might be less so, although I'm not so sure. We'll start with Burnley versus West Ham. What's the latest betting on this one, Johnny? And what are your thoughts on how it will end up?
We've got Burnley at 6-5, 12-5 the draw, 21-10 West Ham. I'm going to go for a home win here at Turf Moor. I think Burnley are a completely different team at home. I think the major concern for Burnley is last week's performance against Sheffield United. Is it a blip, or are they returned to the previous form at the start of last season when they struggled? Hopefully for Dyche it's a blip. I think they're missing Chris Wood up front, but I think Barnes will cause the West Ham defence some trouble. They looked all at sea against Newcastle last week for 60 minutes. I do think West Ham could potentially score, but I think Burnley will hold on here, and I think they'll be a tough nut to crack at home, and I'm going to go for a home win.
Home win for Johnny. Who for you, Mark?
I was at West Ham Newcastle last week. West Ham were horrendous for an hour.
What's gone wrong there? Because that squad should be doing much.
The defensive line was on the halfway line, and you just booted the ball over the top, and Zabaleta and Balbuena couldn't get back. The midfield, Declan Rice was really poor, sort of setting off the midfield. They had absolutely nobody close to Haller, so it was just a really disjointed performance. And Newcastle scored 3. They missed 2 one-on-ones, had a shot blocked almost on the line and hit the woodwork. You couldn't believe what you was watching, really. I stayed to the end to miss the rush for the train station after an hour. But if West Ham play like that, they'll lose against Burnley. The goalkeeper, Roberto, just terrible at set pieces.
Oh my goodness,
all the goals were set pieces. Burnley are masters of the set piece. They have been backed, Burnley. I did like them at the initial prices, not so sure about 6-5. Tarkowski got 3 goals last season, hasn't scored this, but I think Sean Dyche will have been targeting that goalkeeper all week.
Okay, and Dan?
I think West Ham are a bit overpriced here. I think both teams put in really dreadful performances last weekend. I think sometimes, Burnley have been on a bit of a dodgy run for a while as well now. Neither team's been playing that well. I just think sometimes when 2 teams are in bad form, you're better off to be the away side. I think there's a little bit less pressure on you than West Ham playing at the London Stadium at the moment. Some of their away performances, I watched them at Watford where they won 3-1, did the basics well there and had their quality on the break. At Villa they drew 1-1, had 10 men for a big portion, should really have won that game. So I just think if they get back to basics, I think their extra quality might tell, and they look a big price to me. Okay,
next up, Newcastle Bournemouth. What's the latest bet in here, Jonathan?
We've got Newcastle 8-5, 11-5 the draw, and 17-10 Bournemouth.
Mark, what do you like?
The draw. If Bournemouth only conceded 1 goal in their last 4 matches, the 3 defeats this season, Man City, Leicester and Arsenal. But I was looking at Newcastle, and actually Arsenal were the only team to have won at St James's Park. And their recent performances have generally been okay. So, draw, and Maximin's definitely one to watch. I loved watching him play for Newcastle last week. Absolute pleasure.
Dan Childs, what's your view here?
I think both teams are suited to playing away. Sam Maximin, as Mark's mentioned, is the big pace threat for Newcastle. Bournemouth, I've watched them a few times. Got King and Wilson is the big threat on the counter for them. Because of that, I'm gonna go for Bournemouth to win.
And Jonathan,
I'm going to agree. I'm going to go with Bournemouth to win as well. I think they were brilliant against Manchester United last week. I think King and Wilson were superb up front, and defensively, Man United struggled to really land the blow. I think Ake and Cook look solid enough at the back, and I think if they play anywhere near as good as they did against Man United, I think they'll be tough to beat. So I'm going to go for an away win.
Okay, another head scratcher. Southampton Everton. Johnny, what's the latest betting?
Southampton 9-5, 23-10 the draw, and 7-5 Everton.
Where'd you start with this one, Dan?
I'm going to go Southampton. I think although they lost 2 games to Man City, I think they'll have gained confidence from those performances. I don't think they could have done a lot more than what they did last weekend. They defended with a hell of a lot of organisation and spirit. They showed they're back fighting for their manager. They have got a bit of quality as well going forward. I think this is their first home game where they've got a chance to appease the fans after that 9-0. I don't really rate Everton at the moment. I thought it was a dreadful game against Spurs and they were lucky to get out with a draw. So Southampton to me.
Jonathan?
I'm going to go home win. I'm going to go Southampton. I think they impressed me enough against Man City in the last 2 performances after the 9-0. Everton haven't actually won at St Mary's since 2002, believe it or not. Which
That's amazing.
Yeah, remarkable, really. I think Southampton probably will have enough going forward to trouble the Everton defence. So I'm going to go Southampton win.
I reckon it's going to be 3 votes for Southampton, Mark.
Yeah, probably. Although I think if you do like opposing Everton, I think you're just better off lining up the set-piece threats, really, because Everton are the worst team in the league at defending them, and Vestergaard, absolute giant, Ward-Prowse, one of the best sort of set-piece deliveries in the league. So But yeah, Southampton limited City to 4 shots on target last week, which was a really good effort. And Everton looked like they'd given up. To me, the crowd looked like they'd given up last week against Tottenham. I don't think they would have ever scored if it were 11v11. They really blunt up front.
And of course, they're going to miss Gomez.
I was going to say Gomez was their best player. I thought he was the one that looked like he was, was capable of unlocking Tottenham. So these Silvers must be fearing the worst with this international break coming up.
So what are you going to go for?
I'll go for Vestergaard to score any time.
Mark, can you just explain, by the way, we had a question in from a viewer called Mark Brown who just said, how does each way betting work on first scorer? So if you can just take us through that.
Different bookmakers have different rules, but Paddy Powers is a third. And then how many places?
How many are you, Johnny? Are you third, the 5?
I think it's third, the 5.
Yeah,
I'll just double check that now.
Third, the 5.
Yeah, so you are. It's almost like any time. You will get the odd game where there's 8 different goal scorers or whatever, and you just have to suck that up. But it does also. I think Paddy Power do depend on whether they are capable of altering theirs depending on if it's sort of like a Man City against Harrogate or something.
Okay,
like
so
that.
basically, Mark, if you back a player at 12-1 each way, you've got 2 bets, obviously. So you have £1 each way. You've got £1 at 12-1. That he scores the first goal, and then you've got £1 at 4-1, which is a third of 12-1, that he scores any of the first 5 goals. It's worth shopping around because different firms have different place terms, and also occasionally the anytime scorer can actually be the anytime scorer price can be bigger than the place part of the each way bet. So hopefully that makes sense. If there are any aspects of football betting that you'd like to ask the lads, then do feel free to drop us a line. You can comment on the at the bottom of the YouTube, or you can get in touch with us at Racing Post Sport. Okay, our final 3 p.m. Premier League game: Spurs versus Sheffield United, and at long last we have an odds-on favourite, Johnny.
Yeah, we do. We got Spurs at 1-2, 3-1 the draw. Sheffield United 5-1.
And Johnny, would you be lumping on the tots at 2s on?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Certainly for me. Spurs win and both teams to score here. I think Spurs have responded brilliantly since the Bayern Munich result. I think they've sort of started to settle down. They were unlucky at Anfield a few weeks back. The Son has scored that chance. Who knows how that could have ended up. I do think Sheffield United will score here. I think they've got some threat in terms of aerial duels. They're only second behind Burnley in the league, so they are going to be physical up front. They are going to cause Tottenham some problems. I think they'll be difficult to break down, but it's hard to look past Tottenham here. And Sheffield United away form this season, they've won 1 and drawn 4, scoring 6 and conceding 4. So they are pretty resolute at the back. So I do think Spurs will win though. Okay,
Tottenham are certainly going to have to be on their game here, aren't they? Because Sheffield United have started this season very brightly, Mark, haven't they? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I wouldn't be putting Tottenham in the Ackers at 2s on. I have got Spurs to win and under 3.5 goals. What Johnny was saying there about Sheffield United, very low scoring matches generally, and I think that Tottenham will have to show quite a bit of patience to break them down. They have, I think, started to look like a bigger, not against Everton, Harry Kane wasn't playing, but in the matches against Red Star, even at Liverpool, there was some creativity coming back to that team with Son and Kane. Dele Alli, Lo Celso played very well in the win over Red Star. I think Spurs will get over the line, but yeah, I wouldn't be rushing in at the 1-2. So maybe Spurs to win and under 3.5 goals.
You're going to rush in for 1-2, Dan?
I wouldn't rush in at 1-2. I do fancy Spurs to win now. I just think it was a massive week for Spurs this, and that was a big result for them confidence-wise against Red Star, and a few players there have taken a lot of confidence out of it. Lo Celso, as has been mentioned, I think Dele Alli's looking a little bit more like his old self. Wasn't the outstanding player in the week, but laid on the assist, didn't he, just before he got substituted for Heung-min Son. And I think he was getting into a lot of good positions, didn't quite make the most of it. That's why my tip here will be Dele Alli to score the first goal at 7-1. Took his chance really well against Everton. I think he might get the first goal here.
Okay, a fascinating live game at 5:30 on Saturday. Leicester versus Arsenal. It's on Sky Sports. I've seen Leicester odds on in places. Who'd have thought it? How do you bet, Johnny?
We have Leicester at even money, 13-5 the draw, and Arsenal 12-5.
I guess, Mark, if you're pricing this up at the start of the season, Leicester wouldn't have been evens. Should they be?
I wouldn't be backing them at evens to win this game. If you do fancy them at evens, I'm probably should just be topping up in quite a few of the anti-post markets, maybe. I was going to go for Arsenal and draw double chance, just because when the two teams met in April, almost the same teams actually. When you look at the sort of predicted lineups, it was 17-10 each of two. Now Leicester did batter them, and there was an early red card, wasn't there, to Maitland-Niles that sort of opened the game up. But I mean, Arsenal, for all of the negativity, and I am part of that. I don't think Emre is the right person to take them forward. They are still fifth in the Premier League. They've only lost a couple of matches, and one of those was at Liverpool. I don't really read too much into the Europa League games. I mean, it was a mix and match team, and Leicester, I mean, they won the league by sort of defying the numbers and sort of, how many goals they were scoring from the shots that they were taking. But they are kind of doing that again at the moment. And I just think on the numbers, they're a team that look a little bit, they pass the eye test more than they do the numbers one at the moment. I think it's fair to say. They may well beat Arsenal, but I wouldn't be backing them at evens.
Dan, what do you think? Has the market suddenly begun to overestimate Leicester?
That's what I do. I think they're a little bit overhyped a little bit. I'd like to you isolate their form against the Big Six, because or if you want to still call them the Big Six, they've had one win, one draw, 2 defeats. The win was against Spurs, the game that really has turned on that super marginal, VAR decision. They could easily have had 1 point really from 4 games against the Big Six teams this season. They've conceded the first goal in each of them 4 games. So again, that's a bit of a worry, I think, if you're backing Leicester at evens. So I think Leicester will feel they've got a big chance of winning. That could help Arsenal as well, because they might leave a little bit of space, for people like Aubameyang, Lacazette to exploit. So Arsenal draw no bet for me is the bet, 31-20.
Okay, and what do you make of this one, Johnny?
Oh, I'm going to oppose lads here. I'm going to go a home win. I'm going to go Leicester to win and Vardy anytime. I've got a few other bets in tackles markets. Indeed,
lovely.
As the most tackles in the Premier League, and Pereira, 53 and 49. So we'll look if you can get on any player tackle markets on this game. Have a little go at them too. I think over tackles could well be a worth value bet here. I think Leicester, again, have been superb this season. Vardy, Maddison, Tielemans and Demarai Gray, they really, really are a threat going forward. And I think Arsenal are going to struggle in defence to keep them at bay in this one. I think they've looked a little bit more assured of Leicester at the back with Evans and Sonyuku. And I think they've been really, really good this season. I think they've looked really solid. So I think, Leicester to win here. I'm going to go on Vardy to score.
Excellent.
Anytime.
I think I've bet on pretty much everything there is to bet on. I've never had a bet on tackles. So Ndidi and Pereira, we'll have a look at that. If Vardy scores against Arsenal, how's he going to celebrate? Because he flapped his wings against the Eagles last week. Will he sort of try to fire a cannon or something?
Well, he just cupped his ear, didn't he, the previous week against Burnley? So maybe he'll go back to a more conventional.
There wasn't really much you could do with that. I suppose you could have pretended he was like pouring a glass of claret. I don't think many
He doesn't
people
strike
would
me
have
as
got
he doesn't strike me as a claret kind of guy.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. Okay, there's some fantastic Sunday action coming up. We'll do that next.
Everything is better when it's bigger. Paddy Power's Same Game Multi allows you to combine a number of selections from a single match into one big bet. Check out the Same Game Multi tab and get building your bet. Terms and conditions apply. 18+, begambleaware.org.
Welcome back to the Racing Post Weekend Football Postcast. Bruce Millington, Mark Langdon, Dan Childs and Paddy Powers, Jonathan Smith. Let's look ahead to 3 great Premier League games on Sunday. We'll do the non-televised one first. It's Man U versus Brighton. Johnny, how did Paddy Power bet on this?
We've got Man United 4-7, 11-4 the draw and 11-2 Brighton.
Dan Childs, what's the best bet here?
I'm going to be a bit bold here and say Brighton draw no bet at 19-5. I just think it's overpriced. Brighton at the moment they've got more points, more wins and more goals than Manchester United. They've got 11 games in, so it's a fair sample of fixtures. Trossard came back, big player for them. Got the first goal in there against Norwich. They've also got pace from the counter attack with Colony and Mopé. Just don't rate United a great deal at the moment. So that's my selection.
Johnny, what are you going for?
I agree. I'm going to go with Brighton draw no bet here. I think Brighton look very good going forward in terms of, again, Connolly and Mopé. Mopé has actually had the 3rd most shots on target in the league this season, so there might be a bit of value for customers there as well if they fancy a shot on target bet with Mopé. I think Man United defensively have looked all over the place at times this season. I think Bournemouth troubled them last week. Though up front, Rashford could potentially cause them some issues in terms of the pace that they have on the break and Martial. But I do think Brighton draw no bet represents the value in this one for me.
Mark, you're going to oppose United?
Yeah, I was going to do it on the double chance market, so you win with a draw as well. I mean, since the opening weekend when they beat Chelsea 4-0, and I think everybody realises that was a bit of a fluke, really, because Chelsea were the better team for the first hour of that game. They haven't scored more than one goal at Old Trafford since then. So, I mean, you're asking an awful lot of them to suddenly start finding goal scoring form. They want to play on the counter attack, but I don't think teams allow Manchester United to play on the counter attack. I think it's the wrong way to set your team up, really, sort of in terms of how you want to go forward long term. Brighton have won 3 of the last 4. They were unlucky at Villa. They weren't unlucky in the red card. It was a red card, but they only lost in the last seconds there. And I think Mopé's a smashing player, yeah, and I think he could cause United a lot of problems.
Excellent. Okay, the first of the televised games, 2 p.m. Wolves versus Villa, a good old Midlands derby against 2 brilliant traditional bedrocks of the English game. Who is favourite here? It's got to be the hosts, hasn't it, Johnny?
Sure it is. Wolves 5-6, 5-2 the draw, and 3-1 Aston Villa.
Mark, we'll start with you. I mean, I thought Wolves looked perfectly good value here. Can you talk me out of that?
Not overly. I'm always a little bit nervous about the Thursday night to Sunday because they did win at Manchester City, which kind of blows all of those sort of stats sort of out the water.
And they're on their own midding, aren't they?
They are in both games, which I think helps. It just still makes me a little bit nervous. I mean, I think that's the only game they have won after a Europa League. So that does make me slightly nervous, which is why I was going for both teams to score. Wolves have only failed to score once in the Premier League this season. I am a little bit sort of less confident about them without Big Willy Bolly. I think he's an important defender for them. And Aston Villa, I think they're decent going forward. They scored against Liverpool last week. They got a couple at Arsenal. They scored at Tottenham as well. So maybe Wolves to win it 2-1 maybe. But yeah, both teams to score.
Dan, what's your best bet here?
I really like Wolves to win here. I think they're a really good price at a shade of odds on. You look at last season, they were 7th. Everyone was worried about the Europa League. Right now, they're actually only 3 points off of 7th. I think they're starting to cope quite well. They've had 1 win and 2 draws on their 3 matches after Europa League group stage games. The draw at Arsenal last week, 1-1. 24 shots to Arsenal's 10. Really, really good performance. They've had 1 loss in the last 10 games. That was against Villa, actually, in the FL Cup. But the team that Wolves put out there was a complete joke side. I mean, it wasn't even a second string. It was more like a borderline third string. Villa are doing okay, but I think they've had a few bad results recently, and I still think they might be at risk of relegation come the end of the season. So Wolves for me.
Who are you going to go for, Johnny?
Yeah, I'm going to go Wolves, and Wolves, both teams to score and win, I think, here as well. I think Wolves were brilliant at Arsenal last week. I backed them on the double chance. And I think there's some value at a shade of odds on in terms of the match betting. And I think both teams will score in this game. I think Villa have got plenty of threat going forward with McGinn, Grealish and Wesley. And I think they could well trouble Wolves at Molineux here. And I think, I was impressed enough last week with Wolves at the Emirates. So, I'm going to go Wolves win and both teams to score.
OK, if I knew how to do a drum roll, I'd do it. 4:30, Anfield, Liverpool v Man City. What a blockbusting game this is. Johnny, take it away with Paddy Power's prices.
Liverpool 6-4, draw 5-2, Man City 6-4.
Right then, Dan, you can go first. What do you fancy?
I'll go Liverpool draw no bet. I think the draw is a big runner, but out of the sides, I think Liverpool has a more chance of them winning the game. I think in big games, it's often about who's got the best defence. I know Liverpool statistically haven't defended anywhere near as well as last season, but I think materially with the players they got with big Van Dijk back there, I look at City without Laporte. I always thought not having him for this game was going to be a big issue for them. Liverpool last season, they kind of started like a whirlwind start, then they had 10-15 minutes and kind of blew themselves out. I think they've learned from that. I think they look more of a 90-minute team now. You look at a lot of games they're winning late on, including that one at Aston Villa last week. I just think the home advantage as well gets a little bit underestimated in these big games. And then one more thing I would say, looking at the lead they got at the top, they've actually had a tougher run of fixtures, Liverpool. If you call it a big 7 now with Leicester.
I think we can, can't we?
Yeah, call it a big 7.
Do that.
Liverpool played 5 of them. Man City have only played 1 of them. That was Spurs, where they conceded 2 goals. So, just another thing to think about.
We've got that on the. It's coming up in the Racing Post assist on Friday. Actually, one of our journalists, Simon Giles, has done a big sort of feature on the strength of fixtures in the opening sort of quarter of the season. And I think Man City in the next batch of matches, if you go on sort of points expectation from the spread firms, Man City have actually got the hardest sort of batch of games coming up. They've had the easiest start.
Excellent. That's the assist. It's a fantastic pull-out. It goes in every Friday's Racing Post. You've got Mark's Best Weekend Bets, Kevin Pulleen. There's no one else like Kevin Pulleen. Absolutely superb. And loads of other great contributions. So it's Liverpool draw no bet for Dan Charles. Johnny, what's your idea of the best bet here?
I'm going to go home win and be bold here. I think the Liverpool have been brilliant at Anfield. They haven't lost there since April 2017, remarkably.
Who was that
to? Crystal Palace, it sure was, when Big Sam was in charge. So, yeah, Benteke got a double that day. I think the front three of Salah, Firmino and Mane look very strong. And I think Man City's frailties in defence will be exposed here. They're missing Laporte. I think Fernandinho and Stones are just susceptible to conceding as a goal, as is Van Dijk and Gomez. I think, to be honest, they'll have enough going forward. Will Liverpool to win this one? So I'm going to go home win.
Johnny, I did a bit of my column today. So when I looked at the prices, I simply couldn't believe Liverpool were outsiders. Like, to me, that's how you price this up if it was at Wembley. Why, when there's so little between these teams? And what do we have home advantage in for? Is it 0.6 of a goal, something like that?
Something like that. It's about 0.6.
Okay, why are Liverpool outside? Well, they were before the goalkeeper issue for City arose. Why were Liverpool outsiders? I don't get it. Yeah,
it was a bizarre one. I think people are still getting to grips with Liverpool. Actually, can they win the league? And this season, probably the answer is, I think it's going to be yes. I think they look too strong. It's a bit of a mystery, that one. But Man City, I don't know. It's a bit of a mystery to myself, really. But yeah, I fancy Liverpool to win this one.
You doing the preview in the paper, Mark, or is the sports editor not picked the team yet?
I don't think it's been decided yet. But I can, in respect of that question, Bruce, I think the reason is on sort of expected goals, Man City are about 4 points ahead of Liverpool at the moment, so that would definitely play.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
Yeah, I mean,
and yet they're 6 points behind.
Yes, I mean, well, that comes into the fact of where Liverpool, of their last 5 wins have all been by 1 goal, and there's this. I think there's maybe a feeling that that's unsustainable, and I think it probably is. To be fair,
they might start winning by more.
They might. I mean, but the unbeaten in 43 matches. How many? If they played Man City 43 times, how many times would they be unbeaten? It's one thing sort of playing Aston Villa at home or whatever.
City have only won 2 of their last 13 meetings with Liverpool.
They absolutely hate. They absolutely hate trips to Anfield. It's going to be a horrible atmosphere for them to work in. They have won 22 of their last 25 Premier League matches. I think that people don't like backing the draw, so if you don't like backing the draw, I would go Liverpool draw, no bet, particularly with a doubt over Ederson now. I mean, I wonder about these sort of mind games there, because Rodri trotted out in training the other day. So I think Pep's sort of on full mind game mode at the moment, so I wouldn't read too much into it yet. But I think the draw is the biggest price of the 3 and looks, I think, as likely as any other result. When I back the draw, I always think, if it's a level after an hour, is there a massive desire for either team to go and win it for the risk of losing it? And I think that they could both be happy enough to leave it at sort of 6 points. Liverpool didn't push home that advantage last year when they went to Old Trafford. I know it was away. They went to Old Trafford. They went to Everton. They played it a little bit safe. And this game at Anfield last year was really poor. There were only 13 shots in the whole game. Possession was 49-51. I think Pep just went there and said, we're not losing. And I think if he goes there with a similar attitude, I don't think it's good. I wouldn't. If there's an early goal, it could be a great game. If it's 0-0 after half an hour, I fear for the game a little bit, I have to say.
Who do you think Man City's centre-backs will be?
Rodri and Fernandinho.
2 central midfielders.
Yeah, I think Fernandinho's been trained to play there, and I think Rodri's done quite well when he's played there.
I think he's just really worried about Stones as well, isn't he?
It's a massive rub-down for Stones and the Otter, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it could depend on David Silva's fitness and who he wants to play midfield and whether he feels like Otamendi could play. So I think if he's got his sort of complement in midfield and up front, then I think it will be Rodri and Fernandinho. Also interesting, I think that this is the one sort of team really where Liverpool can't go gung-ho with the fullbacks, because Kyle Walker has got the pace to keep going with Robertson, and if Sterling plays out on the left wing, I mean, Trent Alexander-Arnold has to be mindful of what Sterling can do to him. So I think it might be a case of where they sort of nullify each other.
It could actually be
well, the game last season at Anfield was terrible. Mahrez missed that late penalty, but nothing really happened. And the one at the Etihad later on in the season was brilliant, but the one at Anfield was really poor.
One word answer. Who wins the title, Liverpool or City? Johnny?
Liverpool.
Mark?
Well, if it's one word, City.
Yeah.
Liverpool.
Okay, that's the big game. What else have we got, chaps, in the EFL and Europe? We'll start with you, Johnny.
I'm going to go for Barnsley in the Championship at home to Stoke. Barnsley's recent results against the top sort of 6 teams have been quite good. They managed to get draws against Bristol City, West Brom and Swansea. And they were unlucky at West Brom at the Hawthorns not to get all 3 points there. I think Corley Woodrow, Connor Chaplin will cause Stoke's defence some problems, and I think there might be a bit of value there at 17-10.
Okie dokes.
And then in Europe...
Oh, go on.
In Europe, Atletico Madrid and Leipzig as a double. Leipzig have looked brilliant the last few weeks in Bundesliga. They scored 16 goals in the last 3 games. They were strong against Zenit in the league. And I think Atletico Madrid will look to respond to last night's Champions League defeat. And I think I think I'm going to go for Atletico Madrid and Leipzig as a double.
Lovely stuff. Mark?
In the Championship, I thought Sheffield Wednesday were a fair price against Swansea, the Gary Monk derby. Sheffield Wednesday did very well against Leeds, knocked them out of their rhythm a couple of weeks ago, and I think they could do the same to Swansea. Middlesbrough have got an absolute shed load of injuries and they're in terrible nick anyway, so I thought QPR were fair enough, about 19-20 at home. And then in the FA Cup, if you wanted an upset, maybe Port Vale to win at MK Dons, excluding games against academy teams. MK Dons' last 10 matches, 9 defeats and 1 draw. They have changed their manager. No idea if Russell Martin will be any good. And then in Italy, Brescia draw no bet against Torino. Brescia have also changed their manager this week. Grosso, who won the World Cup with Italy, he's just come in there. I'm not sure the manager was at fault. I thought they were playing quite well, and if they carry on like that, I'm not sure they should be outsiders at home to Torino.
Lovely. And Dan?
Right, the Championship, the big derby game, Nottingham Forest against Derby. I think Forest will win this. Derby haven't won their last 7 trips to the City ground. Lost there, I think it was 3-0 in the AFL Cup earlier in the season. Haven't won away since the opening day of the season when they won at Huddersfield. And although they were middle of the table, I don't really rate them. I think they're going to miss Keogh in a big derby game like this as well, the captain. That's a big loss for them. So Forest there. FA Cup, I quite like Colchester. I know they're obviously having a great run in the AFL Cup, beating obviously Palace and Spurs to annoy us too. But no, they're against Coventry. Coventry at the moment, not actually had an away win all season, even though they're going quite well in League One. Got big problems up front as well. Matt Godden injured, Max Beermu suspended. So Colchester in that one for me.
Okay, thank you, chaps. Right then, the pressure's on. We've had 2 unblemished weeks of naps. Let's see if we can make it a hat trick.
This will not be beaten.
Mark Langdon.
FA Cup, Monday night, Portsmouth, around about 8-13, away to Harrogate. We're going quite well in the National League, but Portsmouth have been really unlucky, I think, in League One recently. Last 6 matches, their shots on target stats, 34 for them and 14 against. I mean, somehow they've only won 2 of those games, but I think they're playing well enough, and also, when a manager's under a bit of pressure like Kenny Jackett is, he can ill afford to lose a giant killing on TV. So I expect Pompey to go very strong at Harrogate, and if they do, they should win.
I was going to make that they played for both teams, but I thought better of it. What are you going for, Dan?
I'm going to go for Wolves against Aston Villa. I think they'll be search for the top half. They've turned that slow start of the season around. And you look at Villa, they've had lost 4 of their 5 Premier League away games. The exception was where they won easily at sort of injury-ravaged Norwich. So I'll question their away form. Wolves for me.
I like the way when you gave that tip, you sort of tapped your nose like one of those old people you see at a race course when they give you the name of a 2-year-old. Johnny, what's your nap?
My nap's QPR to beat Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough have not looked good in recent weeks. They've had to recall one of the young lads that they've got out on loan at Darlington. They're in a bit of a crisis up front. They're not scoring any goals. And I think QPR under Mark Warburton will have too much going forward. And I think, I'm going to go QPR here.
Right then, I am going to go Liverpool. I just can't see why they are not favourites with home advantage. So the Naps are QPR, Liverpool, Portsmouth and Wolves. And Johnny, there will be an enhanced fourfold on Paddy Power under football, under specials, will there not, very soon?
There sure will. That'll be up on site later on this afternoon. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Chaps, weekend plans, you're going to take in an FA Cup game, Mark?
Well, I am going to be near Milton Keynes on Saturday. It's my niece and nephew. They're twins. It's their first birthday. I don't know what the etiquette is of sort of walking out to go to watch MK Dons versus Port Vale during the birthday party. But
That's a done thing.
yeah.
You tell them it's Milton Keynes and Port Vale. They'll understand, won't they?
Big FA Cup tie. Yeah, maybe. If not, I'll just have to watch the scores rolling, and then on Sunday, it's sports editor Langdon on Sunday.
Really?
Yeah. So,
hard at it.
yeah.
Dan, what about you? What's the weekend plans?
Pretty quiet, innit? Watford playing on the Friday night, so yeah, just take Joseph to his football practice Saturday and then sit back and watch the action.
Okay, and Johnny, what have you got? You're always working, you Paddy Power. Like, they work you too hard, don't they?
I'm actually off Saturday, so I'm going to go out and watch the Leicester Arsenal game, and then I'm working the Man City Liverpool, so I'm on the late shift that day, so I'll be enjoying that one.
So when you say you're working for that game, John, just tell us what you do. Do you just keep an eye on the prices and you're tracking all the other sort of markets as they come in? What exactly does it entail? Because it sounds jolly exciting being a football odds compiler.
Yeah, in place, if we're doing in-play trading, say we're looking at odds movement, are we in line in terms of have we got everything, is our goals going in correctly, our markets up on site, etc., and just making sure that we're as competitive as we can be, and making sure customers have got plenty to back on. So yeah.
Is it hard? Is it intense?
Yeah, you've got to be on the ball and concentrate very hard during the game, and obviously pre-match as well, should you be looking after that. So, and looking at customers' bets and seeing what goes on. So yeah, it's quite interesting. They're always good, these 4 o'clock Sunday night. They're always lively anyway.
Brilliant. Okay, chaps, that's absolutely superb. Thank you very much indeed. Don't forget, if you enjoy these shows, please do make sure you rate, review and subscribe wherever you're listening, which now includes Spotify. I'm back tomorrow for the Racing Weekend show. There's so much rain scheduled that I'm not sure that we'll get all the meetings that are scheduled will take place, but Keels and the boys will have the best bets. And then Jack is back next Thursday for another Racing Post football postcast.
Friends, or maybe more. Earn a 20 quid free bet for every friend you refer to Paddy Power, thanks to our Friends with Benefits programme. Log into your Paddy Power account and share your referral link to get started. Terms and conditions apply. 18+, begambleaware.org.